I was standing in my doorway when she said it, her voice sharp as broken glass. Under the founding heritage clause of 1847, this cabin now belongs to the Pine Ridge Homeowners Association. You have 72 hours to vacate. Behind her, 3 men in black suits stood with their hands clasped like hired muscle waiting for the order. My stomach dropped. They thought they could just take everything I'd built, everything I'd discovered, and I couldn't shake the fear that maybe they actually could. My name's Marcus Bennett. I'm 42, and I've spent most of my adult life working as a wood restoration specialist for museums in Boston. 15 years cataloging beams, joints, furniture, you name it. I thought moving to the countryside of New Hampshire, buying a rundown cabin on the lake would be my shot at peace. What I never expected was to end up in a full-on war with the HOA led by a woman who fit the Karen stereotype so perfectly it was almost cliché Victoria Ashworth. Perfect silver hair, smug smile, and the kind of false authority that makes you want to punch a wall. I bought the cabin for 25 cents. Yeah, 25 cents. At a dusty little town auction, everyone else saw a rotting shack, but I saw beams of American chestnut wood that was nearly extinct. The joinery, the proportions, the craftsmanship. It was art hiding under decay. While the crowd mocked me, I raised my hand and said, 25 cents. The auctioneer stammered, tried to remind me the minimum was $1, but the law said if no one else bid, the property was mine. A minute later, it was. From the start, I knew there was something special about the cabin. It wasn't just sturdy, it was intentional, every joint, precise, every cut mathematical. Weeks into my restoration, I uncovered symbols etched into the hidden beams. Tiny carvings, geometric, botanical, astronomical. Not random scratches, but signatures. Dozens of them. That's when the BMW appeared. Black, polished out of place on the dirt road. Inside sat a woman with perfect posture, binoculars pressed to her eyes, watching me. Always watching. When she finally introduced herself, it was with that icy smile. I'm Victoria Ashworth, president of the HOA. That cabin sits on historically significant land. By rights, it belongs to us. I laughed in her face. I bought it fair and square. I've got the deed. But her smirk only widened. We'll see what the law says about that. Next thing I knew, letters were piling up. Fines for grass being too long. Fines for unapproved colors on my shutters, even a violation because my truck clashed with the community aesthetic. Neighbors I barely knew started whispering, avoiding eye contact. She called a community meeting and painted me as the greedy outsider trying to steal their heritage. And standing there as dozens of eyes glared at me, I actually felt a doubt. Was I the bad guy here? Did I bite off more than I could chew? I wanted to quit. Sell the cabin, move back to the city, let Victoria and her cronies have their empire of rules and pettiness. One night I sat staring at the cracked beams, asking myself if it was worth it. That's when I met Eleanor Hartwell, the retired town librarian. She walked up after a meeting, gentle voice but sharp eyes. Marcus, you don't know the half of what you've stumbled into. That cabin isn't just a house, it's the work of Elias Whitmore. Whitmore. The name hit like a thunderclap. A legendary 19th century craftsman thought lost to history. Eleanor pulled out journals, old records, even family documents from Victoria's own ancestors. Turns out, the Ashworths had been obsessed with Whitmore's cabin for nearly 2 centuries. Generation after generation, scheming, failing, trying to take it. Victoria's HOA was just the latest weapon in a family war against a dead artist's legacy. The real twist came when Eleanor and I took a drone up over the cabin. From the ground, the roof looked like warped shingles. But from the air, the shadows aligned into a star map, Ursa Major, the Big Dipper, pointing toward Polaris as it appeared in 1850. Whitmore had designed his roof as a constellation. We followed its path to an ancient oak tree. Buried beneath it, we found an iron box sealed tight for 175 years. Inside, Whitmore's will. I'll never forget reading those words. He left the cabin not to any family, not to moneyed interests, but to whoever had the soul and patience to perceive beauty hidden within decay. He even demanded that half its value be dedicated to arts education for local children. Proof undeniable that the cabin was mine and meant to be shared, not stolen. But proof wasn't enough. Victoria didn't back down. She doubled her harassment. Anonymous phone calls at night. "Walk away, Bennett. You don't know who you're dealing with. Flyers slipped under neighbors' doors claiming I was a fraud. Contractors I hired suddenly backed out. Sorry, the HOA said we'll lose other jobs." I started to wonder if she'd win by sheer intimidation. Then my lawyer friend Jake told me his story. His parents had been crushed by Victoria's HOA in another community, nickel and dimed with absurd fines until they lost their home. His father never recovered. Hearing the pain in his voice lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about a cabin. This was about stopping her from destroying more families. The showdown came at the Pine Ridge Town Hall. Word had spread, reporters filled the back row, and residents live-streamed on their phones. Victoria marched in with a squad of attorneys' crisp suits and smug certainty. They laid out their argument the Heritage Clause of 1847 gave the HOA control over historically significant properties. Polished slides, expert testimony, the whole 9 yards. People nodded along. Even I started to panic. What if they really had me? Then Jake stood. Calm, sharp, unshakable. The HOA was founded in 1985. It has no legal tie to an 1847 community charter. None. They've been bluffing for decades, intimidating people into giving up homes they had every right to keep. Gasps rippled through the hall. And then it was my turn. I showed the drone footage, the roof glowing like a cosmic map. I read Whitmore's will aloud, his words hanging heavy in the silence that true ownership wasn't in paper deeds but in the ability to see hidden beauty and protect it. Finally, I read the decoded journals of Thomas Ashworth Victoria's ancestor plotting to seize the lakefront to turn Pine Ridge into an exclusive resort pushing out ordinary families. The room exploded in anger. Neighbors who'd once turned away were glaring at Victoria now. Her attorneys whispered frantically, their confidence evaporating. When Jake presented records of 23 families bankrupted and foreclosed under her schemes, the board had heard enough. They ruled unanimously my ownership was legitimate, and the HOA had no authority whatsoever. But Victoria wasn't done. She leaned in close as the room emptied, her eyes burning. "This isn't over, Bennett. My family has run Pine Ridge for 6 generations. You've made an enemy you don't understand." Then she walked out, her heels clicking like gunshots. Weeks later, the law caught up. The state attorney general, the FBI, they traced her network of foreclosures, shell companies. Money laundering. One November morning, she was led out of her mansion in handcuffs, her empire collapsing in front of cameras. The woman who once stood on my porch with 3 enforcers at her back was now just another criminal in custody. That's where my story ends. Not with champagne, not with celebration. Just the sight of her being taken away, the weight of her threats finally gone. And here's the lesson I learned: bullies only win if you let them convince you they have the power.